Spring is March 20th through June 20th, and I figured on our run to and through spring, I'd like to do a little series, and that's going to be taking some of mine and your favorite fragrance brands and breaking down the best fragrances that I have from each one that worked perfectly for the spring. So it's really quite that simple. I've ranked the fragrances I have that are perfect spring fragrances from each brand, from my least favorite to most favorite, but they're all very good considerations if you're looking for some new recommendations from these brands for the springtime. Now, what am I considering a springtime fragrance? It's really quite simple. There is a range of elements or attributes that I would consider for a spring fragrance. In general, has a little bit of a freshness to it. Sometimes maybe a green quality, not necessarily. Maybe some florals and citruses, but also with a little bit of depth, with some dimension to it. Maybe sweeter, warmer, more woodier notes, but not too heavy. Fragrances for the spring, similarly to fragrances for the fall, are what I would call transition fragrances. So they kind of straddle the line between the extreme seasons, and therefore they kind of contain elements of both, so to speak. It's going to vary from fragrance to fragrance. So obviously, as you can see, we're talking about the house of Xerjoff for this first episode. Just going to dip our toes in the water, see how you guys like this, and see if we can turn it into a full-scale series through the springtime and maybe keep it going through all the rest of the seasons. As I've talked about in videos like this where I'm featuring fragrances from one brand, I don't own every single fragrance from the house of Xerjoff. So there will be fragrances you might hope or expect to see that are not here simply because I don't have them. And if you want me to have them, send them. Here's my address. Every fragrance I talk about will be linked in the description, so let's dive right into it. At the 7th spot here is one of the more basic smelling fragrances from Xerjoff. Honestly, it was a head scratcher for me when I first tried it. The more I've worn it, the more it's grown on me, and I do see it as something not only very pleasant, but a little bit special enough to wear in just easy, more thoughtless situations when you just want to have something that smells good and smells relatively high quality. This is Commandante, and to me this does smell a little bit designery. It reminds me of fragrances you might try from Armani or Jean Paul Gaultier. It's sweet and kind of powdery, definitely fresh, maybe some tobacco and honey and fruits, but it is easy. It's kind of creamy, just straight up pleasant and kind of familiar. This is one I might save for the evening times just because of the sweetness. It tends, at least for me, to just cater more to an evening occasion, more on the casual side, nothing super dressed up here. There's some people who might smell this on you and assume you're wearing a typical designer fragrance. I'm just being real, but the quality is elevated here. I like this scent because it's a likable scent. It does work really well for the spring, but I just like the others more, per my taste. But that's Commandante. Let me know if you've tried this one. We have a very beautiful and unique fragrance here that honestly I don't wear a ton, so that's why I had to honestly put it here towards the bottom of the list. I like it a lot. I do plan and want to wear it more than I do, but there's just others I reach for more because it is pretty particular. This is Zefiro from the 1861 collection. Gosh, if you like incense, this is a beautiful scent to consider. It is a fresh, light incense, cooling, smoky. It is woody. There's this beautiful white wine accord in there that just adds a sparkling quality, adds something a little tiny bit boozy, but in a very smooth, classy way, adding just some more dimension to the incense. There's maybe some florals dancing around in here. It's a very handsome and elegant scent profile that I do think works day or night, honestly, but definitely something I would dress up a little bit more. Just a beautiful fragrance that is not really going to smell like anything else that anyone else is wearing around you. Let me know if you dig this one. That is Zefiro. We've got a beloved favorite here. Also works very well for the summer, as many spring fragrances do. Sometimes the delineation is a very, very faded, blurry line in terms of what is spring and summer for fragrances, but hey, we just like to draw the lines just to have more functionality and have more topics to talk about. But this one, a lot of you guys know and love. I do think it perfectly straddles between spring and summer. This is Uden, and it is a perfect spring fragrance for me because it does what I said earlier. It has this duality of a fresh brightness with a warmth, a bit of a sweetness. It is based on a lemony quality. It's kind of like creamy vanilla lemon. I think there's a touch of booziness in here. There's some coffee. So while it is bright and citrusy, it is kind of sweet and warm, and honestly a little bit alluring. Once again, a day or night fragrance. I wouldn't reserve it for anyone. It just works well for either. It is an overall sweeter citrus. So that is how I would generally describe this. If you like a sweeter citrus, Uden is one to check out. It is a beautiful scent. They have a flanker that I haven't tried, Uden Overdose. I know some of you guys love that one and maybe would sing its praises over this one, but I have the OG and I like the OG. That is Uden. This one is a little bit of an oddball for me just because it wasn't what I expected. I was expecting this to be an all-out summer fragrance per the name, which is 40 knots. I thought it would be just a straight up high quality marine fragrance. No, this is an odd one. It is powdery. It's a sweet, ambery, woody, powdery fragrance with a little bit of this almost salty freshness. It almost feels like an illusion, but it feels like it's there, at least to me. When I wear this, when it's in the air around me and it's whipping in the wind and whatnot, I do get a little bit of this kind of oceanic freshness, but it's very minute. It's very subtle and it's so elegant smelling. It is something I would reserve more for the evening, more dressed up evening vibes. I think it's just the ambery quality. Maybe there's labdanum in here. Something about it is just a little bit deeper and warmer and bottom heavy that I just prefer when the sun goes down. So that's 40 knots. I think it's a great springtime fragrance. I have claimed this fragrance to be my favorite from the house, at least from what I own, and I totally stand by that. But if we're talking about seasonal function, it is top of the list for the summer. But for the spring, I wouldn't put it at number one just because of its personality. It just suits the high heat much better, at least for me, but it's still high on the list for the spring. This is Renaissance. This is a primarily citrusy minty fragrance, citrus and mint, kind of like lemon, bergamot, and this cooling fresh mint that is not honestly the most natural, like mint leaf peppermint type of mint. It's more of like a edgeless, smooth kind of gum mint, if that makes sense, but doesn't smell like chewing gum. Don't get me wrong. It's just not quite as herbal of a mint as you might expect from some other mint forward fragrances. But what I love about Renaissance is in the dry down, it gets this kind of ambery, musky, smooth woodiness that just spreads out, makes it last on the skin, makes it diffuse in a beautiful way. It has sillage that lasts for me pretty much all day long. But once again, for me, it's a more top heavy fragrance and therefore I do prefer it for the summertime, but it's perfect for the spring just fine. That's Renaissance. At number 2, we have another old favorite, another old classic. This one also does just fine for summer, but its green quality, I think, really brings it into the springtime perfectly. This is Mefisto, and this is this cooling floral fresh fragrance, almost icy in a way. There's a beautiful heart of iris and lavender, so there's a clean, kind of soapy, soft, supple floral quality that defines the fragrance, but overall citrusy, again, cooling, and really just a very easy but off the beaten path type of fresh fragrance that you can wear for any occasion in the springtime. It does bear resemblance to Silver Mountain Water from Creed. Maybe it was based on that or inspired by that. We can't say that definitively, but I can easily say if you're not a fan of Silver Mountain Water, you'll probably like Mefisto. That inky metallic vibe that I actually do like in Silver Mountain Water is basically non-existent here, and it just has a different type of dimension, which makes it a different type of personality, but based on a similar DNA as Silver Mountain Water, but really good as its own thing. Easy to wear. You could wear this again anytime, anywhere. That's Mefisto. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments. And my personal number 1 for the springtime, I wore this just yesterday. Loved every minute of it. This is a 10 out of 10 fragrance for me as far as wearing experience goes. The way it makes me feel when it's on my skin and around me in the air just elevates everything for me. Elevates my mood, elevates my confidence. I just feel clean. I feel dapper. I feel put together. It is a fragrance I would reserve for the daytime, but more dressed up, kind of like this bottle. Maybe not a bow tie, but I am dressing mostly my best to put forth a great first impression. And this is Mefisto Gentiluomo. I love this stuff. I've loved it for a long time. I only just got this bottle a few months back. It is Mefisto. It takes that same DNA, but it just moves it in a different direction. I wouldn't say it elevates it, it improves it. No, it's just kind of an offshoot. It is a different personality. It's more posh. It's a little bit more powdery, a little bit sweeter in its floral quality, maybe more soapy, less icy, sharp green, more on the irisy lavender side of things. It just smells, again, just so dapper. I do actually believe it would work for the nighttime. In fact, the advert for this fragrance, at least the photo that you would see when this came out, shows it at night, and I think that's fine. It can function just fine, but for me, it is primarily daytime, but you wear it whenever you want. But that is Mefisto Gentiluomo. This is my favorite Xerjoff for the springtime. Let me know what you think of it. If you've tried it, if you haven't, once again, link to this and all the other fragrances down in the description. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.